Our next presenter and presentation is something we've been waiting for a long time, and that is the unveiling, so to speak, or the presentation of the final draft of the Waterfront Development Master Plan. So I want to welcome Jason Janie from UPLAND Planning and Design, who is going to go through some of the highlights of this plan. We will let people know that I believe that we are going to be recording the presentation this evening and that it will be available with the plan to anyone who hasn't had the chance to see it this evening or wants to take a little bit more time going over it. And we're hoping that that will be available within the next day or so on the town website. Okay, so welcome Jason back to Pictou, and we're looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, for having us, or having me here this evening. As you said, I'm here to present this really exciting project that we had so much fun working on, this waterfront plan for the town of Pictou. So as if you have any questions throughout the presentation, you can just ask me, but we can go to the next slide there. Awesome. So I'll just briefly speak about kind of the inception of the project. So there have been kind of these independent projects going on, the new library, the development and the renewal of the Hector Heritage Quay and the Ship Hector replica, and some investments in marine infrastructure. So really the town was looking at how can we tie these together, but also how can we create this holistic plan for the waterfront, and that's kind of where we came in. So the waterfront plan is just that. It creates a strategic vision for the Pictou waterfront that celebrates the uniqueness of Pictou and establishes a blueprint for future growth. So the project area included the bulk of the waterfront. So it was bound by Water Street and Front Street, going southward towards the harbor, and kind of the key landmarks on the westward and eastward sides is the shipyard and the DeCoste Performing Arts Center, and it kind of extended beyond in each direction there, but that's kind of the bulk of the study area there was kind of the traditional area of what people think of as the Pictou waterfront. There were 4 key steps that we took to complete this project. So the first was the background research and analysis, and this is where we looked into kind of these macro, meso, and these really context-specific trends and issues that are quite that looking at the waterfront and what issues are at play and what are those trends and what are the key pieces of the waterfront that make it unique. Then we went into the community engagement phase, and then in January we released the draft waterfront plan where we presented it online. And then here we are tonight with the final waterfront plan presenting to you, Council. So like I said, we did that initial phase of engagement. I don't know if you were there on the waterfront, but we were there a few nights during the musical waterfront series, just taking people's notes and hearing what they had to say about the waterfront, what they love, what they wanted changed. We had an online interactive map where we had nearly 200 people comment. Again, there was so much excitement in the community, and again, this was just an exciting project for us to work on because there was so much excitement in the community. And then we held a series of stakeholder interviews and focus groups with stakeholders in the community. So we took that background research analysis and that public engagement, and we drafted a vision, and I'll read it out for you tonight. So it's Pictou's waterfront will be the center of civic life and a gathering place of creativity, culture, and innovation. It will be the first choice public space and destination for residents and visitors with equitable access and inclusion for all. The waterfront will help strengthen Pictou's connections and surrounding communities, and it will spark social, cultural, and sustainable economic opportunities that benefit the town and region. The waterfront will be reflective of the diverse history, heritage, and cultures that have occupied Pictou and its surrounding areas, all the while ensuring the town and community continue to evolve together. And we also developed a series of 8 guiding principles. You can go to the next slide. So we drafted the vision and these 8 guiding principles, and together that really guided how we were to develop the waterfront plan. So it's about celebrating the waterfront, having holistic history and this lens of holistic history as we look forward in the town, inclusivity, every sense of the word, Stimulating economic development, meaningful and memorable opportunities, making connections, again, physical connections as well as social connections and economic connections between the town and the region, and kind of those inter-municipal relationships that are so key to Pictou County, but just reflecting on the presentation that we just heard. Showcasing creativity, and finally, collaboration and management. When we're looking at the objectives of the waterfront plan, there were kind of some key ones that came to mind. The first one being reinstituting the fully functional marina. So the breakwater that broke in 2020, 2021, that's a key piece of marine infrastructure that needs to be replaced. And it'll help reinstitute that marina that's been there for so long in the town. Improving access to interact with the water, that's a key thing that we heard throughout the plan, was people want to be able to touch and feel the water and be close to the water. Activating areas with unique experiences along the waterfront through development, reuse, placemaking, and programming. Broadening and deepening the historic and cultural narrative told about Pictou. Creating and enhancing opportunities to move along the waterfront as a pedestrian and cyclist, as well as removing all kind of barriers. And finally, establishing a formal procedure and plans to make decisions about future development along the waterfront. Other objectives included including signage and interpretation to help people move along the waterfront using spatial cues and public art, as well as play and creativity as kind of underlying themes of what people think of when they come to the Pictou waterfront. So we created a draft waterfront plan, and we released that, as I mentioned, in January of 2022, and we went through a round of public engagement. You can go to the next slide there. And again, there was a lot of feedback that we got on that plan, and it was great for us to reflect on as we were developing the final plan. So we presented at the end of January, and there were around 60 people that attended that presentation, and a series of questions and comments that we got. Again, we released the interactive map with the updated plan, and we got 150 plus people commenting on the map. Again, so much excitement in the community, and then written feedback through emails and a summary kind of document workbook that we created that people could either send in electronically or drop off at the town, and we got some hard copy submissions as well, which is great. Reflecting on some of the key themes that we heard from the draft plan, there was really strong support for many of the key proposed changes that we had on the Pictou waterfront, including improving access to the water, the potential development opportunities that they saw, as well as improving active transportation and removing barriers on the waterfront. There was some concern expressed both at the public meeting as well as online about the loss of the ball diamond here at the CN station, as well as the lobster carnival, and I will address those in the presentation later. And then as well as interest in how the plan will be financed and how infrastructure, current and future infrastructure, will be maintained for not just now, but for 10 to 20 years down the road for the town. So we took that information, and this is the final rendering of the Pictou waterfront plan, and you can go to the next slide there. So within the plan, we've broken down the recommendations into 5 key sections. The first one being the area improvements. You can go back a slide, actually, that's okay. Area improvements, so these are the physical changes along the waterfront that you'll see, but they're also supported by a series of 4 other kind of policy and programming sets of recommendations that really support those physical changes. So identity and promotion, access and corridors, programming, and then planning and policy. So yeah, the first one being is those physical changes along the waterfront, and I'll go in through those individually, and you can go to the next slide. So this is the proposed change for the Cost Performing Arts Center and the future library. So this will be a key site on the waterfront. People will be spilling out from the library or from performances at the Cost Performing Arts Center. So it's key that this space is really integrated with the rest of the waterfront. So you can see there's the beginning of a boardwalk there, as well as 3 at-grade beach spaces. So we had initially proposed a beach space in that corner there, but there was concern regarding it being a tidal harbor, that how that could create a maintenance challenge for the town. So we essentially created them at grade, so they're kind of at grade beach spaces, and then replaced the beach with seating steps, as you'll see in that image on the bottom left there. And we've also proposing to move the boat launch to the other side of the waterfront, so that there's really this sense of play and creativity in this area here. And as you can see, this is kind of a midterm recommendation earmarked for years 4 to 6. You can go to the next slide there. And this is kind of a rendering of looking towards the Market Wharf. You can see the mill in the background there, and that would be the marina building on the left-hand side of the image there, looking towards the Pictou Harbor. The next area we're looking at is the Market Wharf and Marina. So as I said, reinstituting the marina is really a key piece of this plan, and that includes reestablishing the breakwater that was removed last winter. Again, reflecting on the presentation that we both just heard, we really see Pictou as kind of this key space in the provincial marine itinerary. So by reinstituting the breakwater and the marina, there's this space for boating within Pictou Harbor and Pictou County and the Northumberland shore, and this key destination in the provincial network. But you'll also see we've included some public space improvements down the center and down that edge of the new breakwater there. So there's space for vending sites, flexible seating as well as built-in seating, as well as kind of swings and hammocks, things that keep the kind of flexibility. Really what we saw, there's a key element of flexibility within and creativity within Pictou, and we really want to reflect that within some of the key elements of the plan itself. You can go to the next slide there. The next space we're calling is called the Key District. So we're looking at the Hector Heritage Key and the Fisheries Museum, as well as the RCMP station. So the key recommendations for this site really look at improving public access around the Hector Heritage Key, and then making connections with the Fisheries Museum. We are under the understanding that these are private lands, and so this would require some sort of cost-sharing agreement or other agreement with these landowners to make these improvements. But we feel this is really key piece, is really central in the waterfront itself, and being able to navigate around the Hector site, as well as making those connections with the Fishery Museum are really important. And then just looking at the RCMP station, so if this space were to ever become vacant, there's an opportunity to create a civic space on the southern end where the parking currently exists. So I think there's 12 parking spaces in that site, but through landscaping and seating areas, you can create this really unique civic space just south of that building, and with the town owning the property beneath or behind that, the RCMP station, there's a negligible loss of parking on that site. The next space we're calling is the Creighton Street development. So this is the bottle depot site, the former bottle depot site that the town recently acquired. So this is a great development site for kind of mixed use, either a light industrial or a commercial site or a combination of them. Right on that site there, and integrating kind of the boat launch and a turnaround area on the eastern extent of that property. So moving it from the current location to this location, kind of more in line with the institutional nature with Pier B and Pier C right next door, and leaving the other side of the waterfront more for that play and creativity side. Also looking towards the property to the north, it's currently the cruise ship welcome area, and with the plaza space that I'll speak to next, there's another opportunity long-term down the line that this could also be a future development site for the town as well. And finally, I just wanted to touch upon at the southern end there, you have a floating dock area and another kind of seating step area. So again, trying to integrate as many areas to interact with the water itself. On this site, we're looking at the CN rail station, the building we're currently in, and we visited it multiple times on our tours of the town, and there's just so much potential in this site for either commercial use or community use, and really looking at making kind of this eastern hub and node at this end of the waterfront. There's something that's missing at this end of the waterfront, and by transitioning this building or reimagining this building to a community use or a commercial site, there's this core piece kind of missing at this end of the waterfront. Also, building that that seating plaza that you'll see, and in those images there, we can pay homage to the rail station, just through simple lines in the pavement, and then it creates a plaza space that can be used for either food trucks or some sort of market stalls. And as you'll see, I think on the next slide there, we've kind of imagined this space as a Christmas market, as you see. So on the far left-hand side there is I believe that's the Custom House Inn, and in the background there is the CN Station building, and in between we're using that overhang as almost a Christmas market, and there's an opportunity for all these kind of stalls and lighting just to reimagine this end of the waterfront. And then looking towards the ball diamond here, what we're calling the Pictou Common. So as I said, there was concern regarding the loss of the ball diamond, and in discussions with the town, it was important that ball diamond is replaced elsewhere in the town before the Ricky Memorial, or the Ricky Sutherland Memorial ball diamond is removed. So ensuring that space is replaced to elsewhere in the town before any of these works are done. And as you'll see, there's an opportunity for a raised lookout or a berm that you'll be able to overlook the harbor with, as well as two kind of play spaces, one being a traditional playground, and another one, we labeled it a splash pad, but there's an opportunity for just a secondary play space, as well as a small performing arts space that we can use for movies, or outdoor plays. And then to help kind of finance this project, there's an opportunity for residential development on the north side of Front Street. So looking at either kind of subdivision or leasing from the town, because the town does own these lands, as an opportunity to finance these projects. And then reflecting on the Lobster Carnival, and so this is obviously the key site that the Lobster Carnival takes place in, and then that was a key concern that we heard of in the community. What happens to the Lobster Carnival? And we had no intention of removing Lobster Carnival from Pictou. It's such an important event in the town and in the county and in Nova Scotia as well. But just looking at how it can be reimagined. So we still have the existing parking lot at the CN Station, as well as the plaza spaces that have kind of been built throughout the waterfront. And there will be new parking at the DeCoste Performing Arts Center. That's also an opportunity, as well as Cala Avenue as a whole. So looking at the Lobster Carnival as potentially a street carnival rather than situated on this same property. So Lobster Carnival is a very much part of the future of the Pictou Waterfront, despite it may not look exactly the same as it has in the past. So we just wanted to state that. Go to the next slide there. So this is a potential rendering of looking atop the berm towards the harbor. So that is up on top of that berm, looking southwards towards the harbor where that cruise ship is there. And if you go to the next slide there, so that's that small performance space that it's lit up with lighting, as well as being used for outdoor movies there. You go to the next slide there. And then finally, the waterfront will be connected with a series of boardwalks, what we're calling Harbor Walk. And again, this just creates a cohesive identity and theme throughout the waterfront. So once you've arrived and you're touched down on the boardwalk, you kind of just follow the boardwalk throughout the rest of the Pictou Waterfront. And this one kind of is implemented as not as its own project, but as part of other projects. So when the Market Wharf and Marina gets implemented, the Harbor Walk gets implemented as well. So you'll notice that there's no cost associated with that one, but that's because it's just integrated with the other ones there. So the next set of recommendations looking at identity and promotion. So these are kind of more the softer side of the Pictou Waterfront, not those spatial or those physical changes. So the first one being developing a Pictou Waterfront identity. It's important that when people know they've arrived, when they've arrived at the Pictou Waterfront, they know they've arrived, so creating that identity. Developing a palette of site furniture. So again, these are all kind of spatial cues that remind someone and give someone the spatial cues to know that they've arrived at the waterfront. Next one being adopting a holistic, integrative, or interpretive approach. So site interpretation is important. So this is how someone goes around the waterfront and learns about it. It could be as a traditional panel, or it can be multimedia or sensory. Importantly, with this one, so there's several themes that we could potentially explore, such as natural environment or the built environment. Also, importantly, there's opportunities to integrate Mi'kmaq heritage and Mi'kmaq culture, but it's important that this work be done with those communities to ensure that the story is being told with the consent and with the knowledge, and it's built by the Mi'kmaq communities. The next one we're looking at is promoting the waterfront to locals, tourists, and marine visitors. So these are three distinct but very different potential users of the waterfront, and they'll both have different kind of strategies that we can get at these different groups. So if it's through a website or a social media campaign, or looking at marine itineraries and marine information for travelers, how do boaters get around, and when a boater gets here, what is the 3-day itinerary when they do get to Pictou. The next we are looking at, access and corridors. So this is kind of looking at Pictou as kind of moving to the Pictou waterfront. So the first one being is extending the Jitney Trail throughout the waterfront and creating what we're calling a waterfront loop. And there's an image associated with this one. So this is really looking at turning Cala into a one-way. So it currently functions as a two-way with parking on the south side of Cala. What we're proposing is turning it into a one-way and putting parking on the north side there. And on the south side, what we're proposing is a bi-directional multi-use path. So this will kind of extend from the Cost Performing Arts Center beyond, where the Jitney Trail kind of trailhead exists in the town, and extend it through the waterfront and to the CN train station and the Pictou Common. Sorry, just gonna check my notes here. Yeah, sorry. So as you'll see here, this is kind of a rendering looking towards the Hector Heritage Key interpretive site. So you have that bi-directional trail and the harbor on the right-hand side there, and the one-way traffic on the left there. And I should have mentioned this, or I was going to mention this previously, but by turning Cala Avenue into a one-way street, we're essentially creating kind of a waterfront loop for automobile traffic. So people coming down Water Street, they can turn down some of the side streets to get to Cala, but it's kind of promoting people to go up Water Street down to Front Street, which is great for local businesses to just get more eyes on the street for local businesses there. The next one is developing a waterfront wayfinding system. So how people get to and around the waterfront is integrally important. Again, promoting that theme of identity. How do you know you're on the waterfront when you're there? Linking the downtown and the waterfront. So this is looking at kind of placemaking. So even using paint on the street or murals on street corners just to draw people into around corners and either down either Commercial Kemp or Depot Street and those side streets that kind of people may not think to go up and down frequently, as well as signage and public art. Those things are great explicit and implicit cues for people to travel up and down the waterfront. Developing an integrative approach to parking. So there's currently on-street and off-street parking, but as I said, that waterfront loop will help people promote people to come to areas they wouldn't traditionally park. So the CN train station is an underutilized asset for parking on the waterfront. By creating that waterfront loop, we're helping to push people this way, and then with other assets such as the Harbor Walk and the Jitney Trail, you can park at the CN train station and then go explore the waterfront instead of kind of circling and try to find a park spot right where you want to go. Other recommendations within this include EV parking or electric vehicle charging stations. EV charging or EV automobiles is a growing mode for people across Canada, and it's important that there's stations in town that people can use to charge their vehicle and then explore the waterfront. And then finally, looking at improving access from the Rotary. So there's kind of that 5-point intersection at Water Street, or West River Road, Water Street, Church Street, Haliburton Street, and Atlantic Avenue. And it just kind of creates this pinch point and friction point for people coming to the waterfront. So just trying to realign that intersection, and then using some signage just to point people in the right direction to the waterfront there. The next set is programming, so again, looking at more of the softer side. So looking at public art policy. If the town's going to develop public art, there needs to be a supporting policy to make sure that those decisions kind of follow a framework, and then supporting the artistic community. There is a strong artistic community, and we got a lot of feedback from the artistic community for this plan, and either through helping the arts community find an incubator space or an annual arts competition. There are ways to help foster the artistic and crafter community in Pictou. Developing a water testing program. People want to use the water, but there's hesitation towards using the water. And kind of step one is ensuring people through hard data that it's safe. So taking that step to test the water regularly and have a reporting system so that people can say, oh yeah, the water is safe to use, or I can dip my toes in safely. The next is developing an integrated approach to placemaking and programming. So these are just different ways to activate the waterfront, either through programs such as a busker festival, or through placemaking, just a set of busker chairs or chairs on patio furniture scattered along the waterfront. There are different ways to activate the waterfront, and these don't have to be expensive. They can be quite cheap, and they can be really experimental for the town to see what works and what doesn't work. And that's really part of this recommendation, is testing what does and doesn't work. And then finally, importantly, is establishing a formal management structure. So after this, one of the key steps is going to be developing an operations and management plan. With these changes comes changes that are needed at the personnel level and their maintenance responsibilities. So making sure that the town has that game plan set out front. It'll be key to making sure that the implementation of this plan goes smoothly, as well as how decisions about the waterfront will be made. So there's opportunities to create either a waterfront committee or a development corporation. So these are two different, the different approaches to potentially implementing the waterfront plan, and these will be just decisions that the town can make and how it wants to influence and really guide decision making about the waterfront. And I believe the last set is planning and policy. So we want future growth and development to coincide with this vision for the waterfront, and through that we can make changes to the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw to promote growth that coincides with that vision, and then finally developing a set of design guidelines and a property improvement program. So design guidelines kind of help reinforce character but not mimic it, and once we've developed a set of design guidelines, there's an opportunity to kind of promote property improvement through grants or loans from the town, where someone can improve signage or the facade, because those improvements just don't stick to, or they aren't just relevant to that single property, but they kind of spill out further. So when you have an improved district, you have really a strong core for the town. And then finally, we've set out kind of 3 priority projects, and we've grouped these together so the town can kind of take initiative on a set of recommendations at a time instead of single recommendations at a time. So the first one is setting the stage. So like I said, developing that water quality testing program, that management structure, as well as promoting the waterfront to locals. Those are great first steps that the town can take to kind of get their feet wet in the waterfront development kind of stages and steps. The next one is identity, wayfinding, interpretation. So this is looking at that identity piece, that site furnitures, and the interpretation, and kind of packaging those together and creating this identity piece for the town, its waterfront, so that when new infrastructure gets built, it can be the wayfinding signage can be placed, the furniture can be placed, that all kind of reinforces this identity of Pictou Waterfront. And then finally, the big kind of infrastructure first moves that we're proposing is the Market Wharf Marina, instituting that breakwater and that marina, and then kind of transitioning Cala Avenue into that one-way. And that doesn't necessarily mean that that kind of, if it's heavy infrastructure changes, it can be done pretty experimentally with some signposts and some jersey barriers or some planter boxes to set up those bike lanes as the town kind of finds funding for these projects. And I think that's the last slide there. Yeah, thank you so much. I'll take any questions if you have.
Thank you very much, Jason. This is really exciting. It doesn't look like you left too much out in this plan. I myself am particularly interested in the projects, at the very end, when you talk about project 1, 2, and 3. It kind of puts things in perspective, and I'm trying to picture a timeline. I'd love to see this all happen tomorrow. But we know that doesn't happen. But in this particular case, I think, as expected, you hit the nail on the head with the planning, the things that have to be done up front. I think to start with these projects, you know, the water quality testing, the waterfront management system, right, and most importantly, promoting the waterfront to the locals. Because I think when we started out, it was most important that we make it clear that this project is not for visitors alone, that it wasn't just being created for people who come to our community from away, but it has to be a gathering place for our residents of the town and the local area as well. So I'm really excited about this, and I don't know. I think if I look at the back, the first question people ask, I don't know if it's the first question, is, let's see, what's the price here? Okay, so are you providing the funding to do this, Jason?
And I can answer that question.
Yeah.
So we costed out all the infrastructure upgrades and the programming, and we estimated about 35 million over 10 plus years.
Right.
So again, whether that's through existing revenue sources of looking at, again, that proposed residential development helps build that tax base, as well as there's opportunities to subdivide and sell land, as well as new sources of revenue through grants and other opportunities through other levels of government to pursue these projects. And really looking at that virtuous cycle of making that first investment and then kind of having more people come, and locals love the waterfront more, and it just creates this great virtuous cycle of waterfront development in the town.
And obviously, your plan here incorporates some large projects that are in various stages of planning and completion at this particular point. But I'm looking at this end of the town. You know, the Front Street, the CN station, even the old bottle exchange property and the wharf area there. And I think I think based on the feedback that you've received, of course, from all the different people and groups, I think you've done an exceptional job on this, and we certainly look forward to moving forward with it. Any questions or comments from council for Jason?
Yeah, Mr.
Councillor
Mayor,
Curry.
I'm very excited about it too. I'm very impressed with the overall plan, and I like the step-by-step outline of what we should develop first, and how do we start this. I think that appeals to me because the first steps aren't really expensive steps. We're getting into as we look for ways to create funding or create opportunities to build what we think is the larger projects, just developing the scene down there. And I think we are getting a little taste of it. If you looked in the last year, one, we had no visitors. So the people that were down there were basically local people. But the other thing was by just simply putting out some simple chairs and little activities that we had down around the marina, and how much excitement that caused in the community, and was really a taste of what we could do on the larger scale as your program laid out. So I do congratulate you on that, and I think we're going in the right direction. I just I don't have $35 million on me to support this, but I think it's a great plan. We need something like that to go forward.
Councillor LeBlanc.
Is UPLAND providing any support throughout this development, or was it just for the planning?
So we are kind of running to the delivery of the final plan, and then as always, we're a phone call or an email away. But the submission of the final plan is where our kind of contract ends with the town. But again, there are opportunities where we can connect just to, if you do have any questions throughout the process.
Anyone else? I do want to also say, you know, we put a few colorful chairs down on the wharf, and I think it made a huge difference in just the appearance of our waterfront and so on. And I think very importantly, I know your plan. I did have a chance to look at it prior to the meeting this evening, not in great detail. But you talk about developing a palette of site furniture and those kinds of things. So those are the things, I think, to Councillor Curry's point, that we can start developing a vision of what that waterfront is going to look like in the future. And so that when we are investing in our waterfront, small or large amounts, that it's made to be part of this big picture that you have presented for us here this evening. So again, I think it's amazing. It would be nice to see our waterfront as not only a working waterfront, which it is, and we hope it will remain from an industrial perspective, but also a working waterfront as a marine destination, as a tourist destination, but also as a place for our community to gather and to celebrate. Councillor McKenzie.
I just wanted to add, I appreciate that you pointed out the ball field and other things that I would have asked questions about, but you talked about them already, and I think it's so important that you talked about ARCs. We've had lots of inquiries about that, so yeah, thank you for all your time with this.
Councillor LeBlanc.
And this probably is more of a question to Kyle. So I feel like when I get home, my phone's going to ring and all they heard was $35 million. So can we talk just a second about that, how it's not going to be all at once, how it's going to go a little bit?
We are not going to do $35 million worth of projects in 1 year. Absolutely not. We are not going to do $35 million worth of projects without substantial support from different levels of government. It is actually $35 million is a very reasonable number to do over 10 years with support from the provincial and federal government. We have a phased plan, and I think the proposed council has the right to pick and choose which projects they want to do in which order. So we will choose which ones we believe will have the most impact on the community. Ideally, we will do them all, but of course we have a limitation of how much we can afford. So absolutely, but we will be doing quite a bit of this project, I hope.
Any other comments or questions?
One of the simple things that I think that I liked about that is creating that loop, because I think that also will benefit businesses and create opportunities on our main street, and drive instead of driving down and turning off to the waterfront area. You'll be sort of driven up the street, and I think that's going to be a good benefit to somebody who wants to display or have shops on that street. And it's one of the things I had suggested some time ago, but I think this one is a good one. I like the way you set it up.
And also the whole accessibility part of it, and you know, and one of the challenges you have in a small town that has existed for 150 years, I guess next year, is the width of the streets and the space that you have to allow for non-motorized vehicles and for people to move from one place to another. And I think this would be a good start, you know, for the town to you know, where the Jitney Trail meets our waterfront in our downtown, an opportunity for people to explore our waterfront in more ways than just simply arriving in their car or in their boat. So, yeah, thank you very much, Jason. And I do want to say in closing, I think Upland Planning and Design, Jason and Ryan and your group, you've done an excellent job on this. Who else? Bruce. And Bruce. But I also want to just take the opportunity to thank Develop Nova Scotia and the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency as well for not only their support by providing expertise in this whole process from the town's perspective, but also the financial support in having this plan developed. I think this plan itself has provided us with an important tool in looking forward and not only planning our own funds, but if we are reaching to other levels of government, it's very important for them to see that we've done our homework. And thank you again to you for the big role that you guys played in having this happen.
Thank you, and like I said, it was a tremendously fun project, and we were excited throughout the entire time. So thank you and the town of Pictou for allowing us to come and speak to everyone and create a plan for the town.
Come on back for Carnival.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Jason. Appreciate it.